Namaskaram, welcome to everybody. This is our seventh Gruhasangeetham session for 2020. This is a special session, like I announced last month. We have a guest artist today, Harsha Nagarajan. He and I are very close friends, and we actually go back a few years. I'm going to give an introduction of Harsha when he's going to give his presentation. But we are going to start off the performance with our own Raghav. He's going to do an opening performance of about half an hour ish. So he'll be presenting a few compositions. I see that we have a few unfamiliar names in the participant list. I'm very happy that you all have joined our Gruhasangeetham for this month. As you know, since we have a guest artist, this is a public event, so please feel free to forward the link if you have any friends that might be interested. So before we start, I'm just going to introduce Raghav to whoever may not know about Raghav. So Raghav is learning Carnatic vocal from Sri Tiruvarur Girish and myself. He has also learned Carnatic vocal from Sri Vishnu Pasumarthi and Carnatic flute from Sri Krishna Pasumarthi. Raghav presented a full-length concert at his Arangetram, which was last year in Cleveland. He has also sung in Chennai under the banner of Brinda Repertory, and he has done a few other concerts at Sai Darbar, at the Sri Venkateshwara Temple at Cleveland, Annamacharya Day, and a few other events. He's also performed in Columbus. He's won various prizes in various competitions in Cleveland, in Columbus, and other places. So Raghav will be starting off our performance, our Gruhasangeetham session today with a short performance, and then we will move to our main performer for the day, or presenter for the day, our guest Harsha Nagarajan. So welcome everybody, and let's get started.
Namaskaram everyone. I'll be starting with Vatapi Ganapatim Bhaje in Hamsadvani Ragam. Vatapi Ganapatim Bhaje Vatapi Ganapatim Bhaje
योगिनं विश्वकारणं विघ्नवारणं वितरागिणं विनतयोगिनं विश्वकारणं विघ्नवारणं वातापि गणपतिं भजे वारणाक्षं वरप्रदं श्री वातापि गणपतिं भजे पुराकुम्भसम्भवमुनिवर प्रपूजितं त्रिकोणमध्यगतं पुराकुम्भसम्भवमुनिवर प्रपूजितं त्रिकोणमध्यगतं मुरारी प्रमुखाद्युपाधितं मूलाधार क्षेत्रस्थितं परादिचत्वारि वागात्मकं परादिचत्वारि वागात्मकं प्रणवस्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प्रणवस्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प्रणवस्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प्रणवस्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प्रणवस्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प्रणवस्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प्रणवस्वरूप स्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं सरि सनि पसनि पग पनि प्रणव स्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं रि सनि पसनि पगरि गगरि सनि सरि ग परि ग पनि स पनि सरि सनि पनि प्रणव स्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प प पगरि ग प पगरि सनि प नि सरि ग प पगरि ग पनि पग पनि स पनि सरि ग रि सनि पनि सरि सनि रि सनि सरि सनि प सनि ग पनि प्रणव स्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं सरि रि सनि प ग रि सनि प रि सनि प ग रि सरि ग पनि प्रणव स्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प ग रि ग पनि प ग भ ग रि सनि नि सरि ग प रि ग प ग पनि सरि ग रि सनि प नि सरि ग ग रि सनि प नि सरि सनि रि सनि प सनि ग पनि प्रणव स्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं प प प प ग ग प प प प ग रि ग प प प प प ग रि ग प प ग रि ग प ग रि सनि प ग रि 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 ग ग रि ग प प प ग रि ग प प ग प रि ग प ग रि सनि प नि सरि ग प नि सनि प ग रि रि सनि प नि सरि ग ग रि सनि प नि स ग रि स नि स ग रि स प नि सनि ग रि स ग रि सनि प ग रि सनि प ग रि सनि प रि सनि प ग सनि प ग प नि सनि ग प नि सनि सरि ग प नि सनि रि सनि प ग रि सनि प ग रि सनि प ग सनि प ग रि सरि ग प नि ग रि स नि स ग रि स प नि सनि ग रि स ग रि सनि प ग रि सनि प ग रि सनि प रि सनि प ग सनि प ग रि सरि ग प ग रि ग प नि प ग प नि सरि ग रि सनि प रि सनि प ग सरि ग प नि प्रणव स्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं निरतरं निखिलचन्द्रखण्डं निजवात्मकरविवृतेक्षुदण्डं करभुजपाशबीजपुरं करभुजपाशबीजपुरं कलुषविदूरं भूतकरं कुर्कुवतोषितबिम्बं हंसध्वनिभूषितयैरम्बं वादापि गणपतिं भजे अम्बरणाचं वरप्रदं श्रीवादापि गणपतिं भजे
Next, I'll be singing Saketa Nagaranatha in Harikambuji Ragam.
साकेत नगरनाथ साकेत नगरनाथ साकेत नगरनाथ साकेत नगरनाथ साकेत नगरनाथ साकेत नगरनाथ श्रीकांत जयन्नाथ लोकेश चिद्विलास लोकेश चिद्विलास लोकावन चतुरमपहि लोकेश चिद्विलास लोकावन चतुरमपहि गमपदनि सरि सनि पदनि द पमद पमगरि स गमपदनि सरि सनि द पदनि द पमद पमगरि गमपदनि सरि गमगरि सनि द पमगमपद साकेत नगरनाथ श्रीकांत जगन्नाथ साकेत नगरनाथ रचित मरपाल रचित मरपाल रामचंद्र भूपाल रचित मरपाल रामचंद्र भूपाल रचित मरपाल गमपद पमरचित मरपाल तनिद पसनि निद पमरचित मरपाल प पमगमपद प तनिद पमगमपदनि सरि सनि द पमरचित मरपाल धनि दद पमरचित मरपाल नि सनि द पमरचित मरपाल नि धनि सरि अमयरि स रि सनि सनि द पनि द मरचित मरपाल धनि दद धनि द पद पदनि सरि गरि सनि द पम पदनि सनि द पद पमरचित मरपाल प पमगम पद पदनि द पमगम पदनि सरि स गरि सनि द पम पद पदनि धनि सरि रि सनि द पदनि सरि गरि सनि द रि सनि द प सनि द पमरचित मरपाल रामचंद्र भूपाल राज राज वंदित चरण युगल दीनपाल राजवंश रत्न सदाशिव कवि नुद जिद सपत्न देव देव मुनि जनहित सुरपति नुद शुपत चरि अशरद मुख जन गजारमण देव रिपुना सजन साकेत नगरनाथ श्रीकांत जगन्नाथ साकेत नगरनाथ
Next, I'll be singing a Javali. It's Ni Martale Mayura.
Ni Martale Mayanura Sami Balkaga 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 Ni Martale Mayanura Eme mo bodin chinanne maraje se సామి వలే చెక్కిలి నొక్కిరమ చక్కని సామి వలే చెక్కిలి నొక్కిరమ పోకెరనికే చేనని తాకుల చేసోకించిన పోకెరనికే చేనని తాకుల చేసోకించిన పోకెరనికే చేనని తాకుల చేసోకించిన నీ మాటలే మాయనురా సామి బల్కగా నీ మాటలే మాయనురా. Next, I'll be singing another Javali. It's Tarumaru Ladevane. Tarumaru Ladevane, Tarumaru Ladevane, Pajari 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 Tarumaru Ladevane. నేరమ జగనే కౌగలించమంటే నేరమ జగనే కౌగలించమంటే నేరమ జగనే కౌగలించమంటే నేరమ జగనే కౌగలించమంటే తరుమారు లాడేవనే పజారి తరుమారు లాడేవనే. అంబుజాక్షిరోనే సంప్రముఖ నీదు అంబుజాక్షి రోనే సంప్రముఖ నీదు బింబదర శుభనంబులింబమంటే అంబుజాక్షిరోనే సంప్రముఖ నీదు బింబదర శుభనంబులింబమంటే తరుమారు లాడేవనే పజారి తరుమారు లాడేవనే. తాళలేని బాలికమని నీ తాళలేని బాలికమని నీ తాళవనే చూని ఎరుగోమంటే తాళలేని బాలికమని నీ తాళవనే చూని ఎరుగోమంటే తరుమారు లాడేవనే పజారి తరుమారు లాడేవనే. I'll be ending my performance with a Tirupugal, Kadi Modi Vadad. Kadi Modi Vadadanu போரும் காசு தேடியாமல் வாழ பெறுவோரும் காதி மோதி வாதாட நூற்று போரும் காசு தேடியாமல் வாழ பெறுவோரும் மாதுவாகட் வாழ்வே என குருகாரும் மாறிலாத காலனூரு கலைவாரே மாதுவாகட் வாழ்வே என குருகாரும் மாறிலாத காலனூரு கலைவாரே நாதலோகம் ராகத்துறை போனே நாகலோகமீரேழ பாரு குழியோனே நாதலோப வானாத ராகத்துறை போனே நாகலோகமீரேழ பாரு குறியோனே தேதிலாத வேல்வீர சேவர் குணியோனே தேவ தேவ தேவாதி தேவ பெருமாளே தேதிலாத வேல்வீர சேவர் குணியோனே தேவ தேவ தேவாதி தேவ பெருமாளே காதி மோதி வாதாடனும் கற்றுடுவோரும் காசு தேடியாமல் வாழ பெறுவோரும் மாது பாகல் வாழ்வேயனான குருகாரும் மாறிலாத மகளனூர் பூக்கலை வாரு நாதலோகமானாத ராகத்துறை போனே நாகலோகமீரேழ பாழ குறியோனே நீதிலாத வேல்வீர சேவர் குடியோனே தேவ தேவ தேவாதி தேவ பெருமாளே தேவ தேவ தேவாதி தேவ பெருமாளே
Thank you, everybody. Now we will move on to the main feature for today. I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Harsha Nagarajan. Before that, I'd like to thank Raghav for his performance. Just so you know, next 3 months we're going to have special performances or special presentations. So every time we're going to have one of our senior students present as an opening performance to whoever is going to be giving the presentation. So today's presentation is going to be by Sri Harsha Nagarajan. So I'll just give a short introduction of who Harsha is. Harsha and I go back a long way. We've known each other for a few years now. We've had some interaction as part of our Indian Raga Fellowship. I did my fellowship in 2015. Harsha did his in 2013. We've had many interactions as part of that experience, as well as outside of that. We've had a lot of musical discussions, and I really enjoy interacting with him. He's one of the finest artists that I know. So just a small introduction about him, and I'm going to hand over the stage to him. So Harsha has had the rare privilege of learning Carnatic music from numerous leading maestros in Bangalore. since his young age. Later, he had his advanced training under Sri T.K.V. Ramanujacharyalu, who is a renowned violinist from Srirangam, should say renowned musician. He's known as a violinist, but he's a very, very knowledgeable musician, very well respected. So, under whose guidance he has absorbed the nuances of Carnatic music. Harsha has been performing concerts and lecdems at various venues in US and India, including Chennai December season. Like I said, he was also one of the senior fellows at Indian Raga. That's where we had a lot of interactions, as I was telling you. Um, he was also the president of SPICMACE uh, at University of Texas. He organized numerous concerts and lecdems of senior artists. And outside of music, he has a PhD in mechanical engineering, and he is working as a scientist at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. Um, I'm very happy to welcome Harsha. We really look forward to your presentation. The title for today's lecture demonstration is Sahitya Bhavam in Manodharmam. We've talked a little bit about this in our presentations previously. How it is important to make sure that we maintain the fidelity of the Sahityam and make sure that the Manodharmam or the creative aspect of Carnatic music, whatever improvisation we are doing, is relevant to the Sahityam of the composition or the lyrical content of the composition. I and Harsha have had a lot of discussions on this, and he has given me a lot of guidance on how to choose a particular line for an interval, for example. I don't want to take away his topic, but these are the some of the things that we are really looking forward to hearing from you, Harsha. So over to you, Harsha.
Great. Lalit, can you hear me? I mean, can everyone
Yes.
hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
And you all can see me also, right?
Just hold on one second. We're trying to spotlight you. Is your video on?
Yes.
Yeah, there you are. Okay.
And you all can see me also, right? Clearly?
Yes.
Excellent. Very
Perfect.
good. Lalit, thank you so much. That was a very generous. That was very generous of you to say many good things about our interactions and in general. I have again, as I always, in fact, have had a great time spending time with you, just talking about music and little recording we did at your place in Maya Malavagola. I remember at some point in 2016. And since then, of course, we have been on and off talking a lot about music, but again, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to present to some of the very talented set of kids. And it is possible that many of the things which I will probably be talking about today is something which I have already explained to all the students, but probably it will be a more like a good revision, and maybe hopefully there'll be some new takeaways for all the students. So with that, I would like to share my screen. So before I start that, I wanted to keep this entire thing a bit more interactive, as in I wanted to hear some voices too, if possible. So I wanted to see how we go with that. So if let's say that I throw out some sort of a question or something, are kids going to unmute themselves and potentially participate, or should they put it in the chat, or what do you think, Lalit, is the best way to go?
Yeah, so they can put their questions in the chat. I think that's the most seamless way to do it. They also have the ability to unmute, I think, right?
Yeah, but chat is
Yeah,
better.
but chat is better. If you have
That
specific
is better.
questions, please put them in the chat. And
So as I go along with my presentation, there will be questions which I would like some sort of a feedback, and then the answer to that I would, if somebody can sing, that'll be great. If I have some sort of a singing thing, else it's perfect if they put everything on the chat, because I can also see the chat box in the.
absolutely, if you want them to sing, I'm sure folks will be.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great, great. I mean, of course, it all depends on the comfort level of the student. So there is no pressure whatsoever. I'm just going to have fun with all the students, and I'll just share whatever my thoughts. And this was a great opportunity for me, Lalit. Thanks to you, because I got some time to discuss about some of these topics from some important musicians, including, of course, most importantly, my guru, Sri T.K.V. Ramacharyalu, and I got a chance to actually compile all the thoughts he had, and some of them I had. So, which is what I'm excited to share right now. Let me share my. Oh, you need to, looks like enable screen sharing, Lalit. Looks like host has disabled is what it's saying.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Sure.
Now you should be able to.
Share screen. Yes, perfect.
Perfect.
Microsoft PowerPoint. Share. Great. So you're able to see my slide one, I guess.
Yes.
Now it's in full screen mode, right? It's clear.
Yep.
Excellent. Awesome. Great. So today I will be talking about Sahitya, Bhava, and Carnatic music. I changed the title a little bit because I wanted to keep it a little bit general so that I can actually get into some of the basics and then get to the actual Manodharma Sangeeta, or what we call as the creative music. From now on, for whoever who is not sure about what Sahitya means, Sahitya, whenever I use the word Sahitya, it means lyrics, and Bhava means melody or the feel of the lyrics. And we are going to be talking it mostly with respect to Carnatic music in this presentation, but I'm sure many aspects will also hold true in Hindustani classical music too. But again, this is going to be an interactive webinar, and I'll be happy to take any questions, and I will also be happy to have interactions with the students. Great. So a quick outline of what I will be talking about is I will give a quick introduction. And then before I actually hit to the actual Manodharma aspect, I thought with my guru when we discussed, there is a lot of important aspects which will be very useful for the students of music especially. So hence we thought we'll go step by step where we'll look at the importance of the alphabets or aksharas, as it's called in Sanskrit, in Sahitya Bhava. And how is it that right diction of alphabets is important in representing rightly the bhava of the Sahitya. Then I will head on to more like when there are sentence formations in Kritis, how do we actually split words such that we can improve the Sahitya Bhava and at the same time maintain the aesthetics of music? And then, as Lalit was briefly mentioning, I'll certainly talk about a little bit of Sahityam aware choice of Manodharmam, which is when I choose to do Manodharma, how do I choose the lyrics to do Manodharma? And where can I do Manodharmam and things like that? Okay, so let's get to the introduction. I just have these composers, which I have put all of these composers. Can some student recognize what is the commonality in among all these composers, if possible, before I kind of proceed?
They're all holding an
Very
instrument.
old.
Instrument.
They're all holding an instrument.
I'll have Tanpura.
That's very creative. I didn't expect that answer certainly. But what was the other answer you gave? Okay. Anyway, so that may be a bit subtle reply, which I'm expecting for probably. But the answer you gave was beautiful. You are right. All of them have a tanpura in some or the other form. But where I was heading is that these are all the composers who came what we call as the pre-Carnatic Trinity or the Carnatic Trinity composers. So here are some of the composers who were kind of, I would say, in the major spotlight, who were who were really great composers, who were very spiritual and who were very deep and scholarly. And some of them were Annamacharya, Purandaradasa, Kanakadasa, Bhadrachala Ramadasa, and Utukadu Venkatakavi. And these are all the composers. And in this particularly, if you look at the Purandaradasa, whom we call as the Sangeeta Pitamaha, or translated as, the grandfather of Carnatic music, basically. That is what we call him, as Purandaradasa is. So among all these great composers, they composed in multiple languages. Annamacharya was, of course, predominantly in Telugu, but I'm sure he had a few in Sanskrit. Purandaradasa and Kanakadasa, again, predominantly in Kannada, but few in Sanskrit too. Bhadrachala Ramadasa, of course, needless to mention that he was heavily into Telugu compositions. And Utukadu Venkatakavi was another genius composer who composed in Sanskrit and who probably composed some of the hardest set of lyrics in Carnatic music, I would say.
So Harsha, there's a quick question from Adhav.
From the chat?
Yeah, he's wondering what happened to Tyagaraja.
But as I mentioned, these are the pre-Trinity composers. I was getting to that. So that will be my next slide, actually. We cannot talk about lyrics without invoking the Tyagaraja Swami. But anyway, so I cannot see the chat for some reason, as in I would love to see the chat, but let's see. I see chat is here. Okay. So it is going to be a separate window. That's fine. Okay. Are Purandaradasa and Kanakadasa siblings? No, they were not. I wish, as you can see in the times itself, they were not of their years, right? As you can see, they were, Purandarasa's intersection with Kanakadasa was not much. So, but yeah, but they were all independent, great composers in Carnatic music. So the reason I'm invoking all these pre-Trinity composers is, of course, there was a lot of Carnatic music which evolved as years passed, as you can see in these years in these boxes which I have in the bottom. And of course, they were also heavily influential on the Trinity composers of Carnatic music, which is what we will get into the next slide, right? So these are what the Carnatic Trinity is what we call, and they are the from the left to right, which is Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar, Saint Tyagaraja, and Sri Shama Shastri on the right. And as you can see, all these three composers were pretty much contemporary. So they were all around the same time, around the same place, near Thiruvarur, and they did some of the most groundbreaking contributions to Carnatic music. Needless to say, as I mentioned, there are again still numerous other composers like Swati Tirunal and many people, but I'm just picking these three mainly because those are the mostly the compositions I'll be talking about today. But as I said, they have had a huge influence from these pre-Trinity composers whom we saw in the previous slide, and that is also very clear in the Sahityam and the Bhavam they could evoke in their lyrics when they composed. How did the lyrics go from primarily Sanskrit Kannada to predominantly Telugu? So that is a good question. So for that, I would say the answer is pretty hard because I would say the one simple answer is mainly because Tyagaraja Swami was basically a Telugu speaking man who became a great composer who was very scholarly and ended up being very, 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 very influential over the time, mainly through his disciples. So because he had so many disciples, apparently everybody was a disciple of Tyagaraja Swami in that time. So which means obviously the spread of his compositions and the outreach to people was great. But nonetheless, the quality of his music, the simplicity in his lyrics he brought, the kind of simplicity he could make in lyrics so that it was more apt for meaning and for more bhakti, of course, probably also contributed heavily into the popularity of Telugu, I would say. But also Telugu is considered as more like one of the sweetest languages, which is utilized for compositions. That is how it is classified as. So, which is also partly the reason why compositions sound so good when you sing in Telugu, and which may be the reason why they have chosen those languages. But that's another topic which we can discuss more in detail in a separate discussion. Okay, so, but very good. I'm very glad there are good questions which are being asked. Thank you so much. So again, as I mentioned, these are the composers. And the reason I'm presenting about these composers is because of the compositions of this Carnatic Trinity, the lyrics, along with this kind of what we call as the sophisticated or the structured Carnatic music, really came into life or to the vogue. So I would say until then, Carnatic music existed. I am pretty sure it was in great form. Music was awesome, but then it was evolving as time passed. But the post-Trinity is really when the importance for Sahitya, embedding Sahitya with great musicality and giving importance to lyrics, which contained a lot of spirituality, bhakti, etc., and poetry, is what came into life, I would say. And I would say, to be really to the point, that only in the last 40 years is when there has been an increased awareness towards Sahityam and the kind of bhakti it invokes in the lyrics while performing or just singing, mainly because the whole performance arena of Carnatic music picked up so much in the last 40 years. So which is why you see, okay, people are being a bit more aware and what lyrics we sing, do we mean something, and what do we mean, etc. Things like that. Great. Okay, so let's get to the my next slide. Sorry, I think I lost some slides. Yeah. Okay, great. So now I would like to look at some of the compositions as examples, as I mentioned earlier, and see how we can improve the Sahitya Bhava both in the Kriti rendition and in the Manodharma Sangeetham as we pass on into later slides. So here, I would like to start with simple Geetams because I'm sure that I was told that there are also students who are into basic music who are starting to learn Carnatic music and who are advanced. And of course, I should also say that Raghav did a very good job presenting a kriti like Saketa Nagaranatha, which is very Sahitya intensive, I would say. It's certainly not an easy kriti to sing, so which was very impressive, and the Tirupugar, of course. So from the Sahitya perspective, so we will get from simple things, and then we will actually get into the real interesting things too. Okay. But my point is, I stress a lot on the lyrics in the simple Geetams because I think learning a lot here is itself very important, and then we can basically progress. So let's take the simple example of the Malahari Geetam, which I'm pretty sure almost everyone knows this now, which is the most popular one, which is by Purandaradasa again. The first two are by Purandaradasa. Shri Gananatha Sindhura Varna, right? So in this, can somebody, I mean, it will be great if somebody can actually sing. Don't be worried about being judged or anything of that sort. We are just having fun and we are going to, discuss. So does anyone want to kind of take that step of singing the Sri Gananatha? Just that and the Siddha Charanam is good enough.
If anybody wants to sing, just unmute and let us know.
Uncle, I can sing it.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Who is this? Can you name yourself?
Sasmita Bhaskaran.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Shri Gananatha Sindhura Varna Karuna Sagara Kari Vadanalam Bodharalaku Mikara Ambasuta Amaravinutalam Bodharalakumikara Sitacharana Gana Sevita Siddhi Vinayakate Namo Namo Lambodharalaku Mikara Ambasuta Amaravinutalam Bodharalaku Mikara.
Excellent. Wonderful. You did a very good job. There were some things which you already had fixed, so it will be perfect, which I'll just point to that. So where I was heading is, this is like a very popular Geetam, which most of us have learned. And is the first song which we pretty much learn with lyrics, if we go in the order of, from Sarali verses. But so here, the speciality of this Geetam is that there is this Sri Gananatha. Actually, there's a typo in this slide. Sorry, there should have been a small n there. Anyway, so the Gana, as basically, I was going to get into the actual details of the alphabets, but when you sing Gananatha, the difference between the first na and the second na has to be very clear and distinct when you sing, which is Shri Gananatha Sindhura Varna, again the capital N. So whenever I say capital N, it'll be the one which is the more stressed one, but the small n would be the na, which will be the smaller n. Karuna Sagara na, again the capital N. Karivadana Lambodara Kumikara. Things like this. So the Siddha Charana Gana Sevita, these are all again capital N's. Siddhi Vinayaka small n. So it is very important to have that sort of, awareness when you start learning right from your beginning days, because it can get pretty hard when you get later, when there is deluge of lyrics, when you're singing words after words. It may become very difficult. But once your mind is trained to sing Gananatha as a Gananatha, Vinayaka as Vinayaka, these are all fairly common words which appear again and again in Carnatic music. So it won't be too difficult for you to kind of recollect from your muscle memory, as you can say, right? So that is one example of Sri Gananatha. So next is, of course, Keraya Niridam, which is very popular. Here, I just wanted to point one thing which was interesting, I thought, which typically I've heard a lot of, which is how it is sung, which can be corrected a little bit to make sure the grammar is correct. For instance, Keraya Niranu Kerege Challi Varava Padedavam. So there, Varava Padedavam. So there is a capital D and a small d. Okay. Varava Padedavarante Kaniro Hariya Karunado Lada Bhagyava is how we typically learn when we learn and sing, which is perfectly fine when you learn, musicality is topmost priority and then only comes the lyrics. But once you learn the song, it is very good to get back and revisit to the lyrics and work on it. And I will get into more details of this later. But for example, Hariya Karuna Do is one cycle of the Thala. Lada Bhagya, second cycle. But the way it has to be sung is Hariya Karuna Dolad Bhagyava. That's the split of the words. So of course it won't come, it is not like an exact tala split. Rhythmic structure is slightly different from the lyrical structure, but that is something which will be good to keep in mind when you sing, because it will also evoke the bhava of the lyrics much better. Especially for a native speaker who speaks, for instance, in this case, it's Kannada, it will sound so good to the ears. Hariya Karuna Dolada Bhagyava Hari Samarpane Madi Badukiro Shri Purandara Vithalarayana. There is that alphabet Na, which typically is missed, but it's good to have that. That is when that sentence becomes complete. Shri Purandara Vithalarayana Charana Kamalava Nambi Badukiro Hariya Karuna. Also taking breath between the two words, where actually they also mean a little bit more, will also be easier for the singer in some sense. Hariya Karuna Dolada Bhagyava Hari Samarpane Madi Badukiru. So that's one little example.
So Harsha, I have a quick question on this.
Yeah,
So for the structure where we are doing Hariya Karuna Dolada, so you are shifting it in talam, in the structure a little bit.
So it is, I'm not really shifting. It is like Hariya Karuna Do. It's like you shorten the ya sound of ya a little bit.
So it's only a perception. So that's what I wanted to make sure everybody is understanding. We are not really shifting the position of the syllables, but once you start breathing in the right space, the word becomes continuous. That's what we're driving at. Okay.
Exactly. Hariya Karuna Do is different from Hariya Karuna Do Radha Bhagyava. That's sort of a little subtle difference, but which will also give a little bit break to the singing and to the listeners. Silence makes a lot of value when you're singing. So that's one simple example.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Lalit. Getting to Varavina Mridupani, I'm sure this is again a very popular one. Again, I'm not going to get into the details of the alphabets, as I mentioned. Please pay a lot of attention to the alphabets in your starting days. As I said, it will become much harder later. Instead, you would rather want to work on all these alphabets right now, so that it will be much easier later. So, can someone answer on which deity is Varavina Mridupani Geetam?
Saraswati.
Saraswati. Very good. Who thinks it can be potentially other than Saraswati? Okay. let's look at the lyrics, okay? Which is why I really wanted to hit this point, because it's very interesting for students. Varavina mridupani. If you just look at this line by itself, it may look like it's on Goddess Saraswati. Vanaruhalochana Rani is the second line, right? Vanaruhalochana is nothing but Vishnu. Okay. Who is Vishnu's Rani?
Lakshmi.
Exactly. So the intent of this lyrics is that, we typically associate Veena with, of course, Goddess Saraswati, but then, Lakshmi can also play a Veena, She also has soft hands with which she can play Veena. That's what it's intending. Vanaruhalochana Rani Suruchira Bambaraveni Suranuta Kalyani Nirupama Shubhagunalola Nirata Jaya Pradashila Varada Priya Ranganayaki. Ranganayaki. Again, it has to be Goddess Lakshmi, right? So, in the Madri, Uru, I'm sorry, I am switching to a little bit of Tamil, but the point is a little bit of awareness and having the fact that, okay, this is a song which I'm singing is on Goddess Lakshmi, for instance. If you have that feeling, you can happily go and sing in some Varalakshmi Vartam somewhere. It doesn't have to be on a Saraswati Puja. Just saying. So that's sort of a very basic things which, but believe me, I mean, I wrote down such a big list of things, but then I really did kind of filter it out and took only very few which I could make it in some given time, right? So that is why I'm just pointing a few of them. But as you keep working on your what you sing and having a bit more awareness, you will realize that you will enjoy it a lot more when you sing. Okay, so now let's get into the slight details and the actual alphabetical representation in the languages. Okay, so can someone tell me how many of you can actually read alphabets written in Devanagari script, or the script what you're seeing here, above the English, of course. Not the parents, obviously, the students. Have you spent a little bit of time trying to learn the Sanskrit or the Devanagari alphabets? Can anybody say if they can read these? No, right? Yeah. So I would suggest it would be very, very, very helpful if you can spend a little bit of time, like, let's say, take a summer, like go to Samskrita Bharati. There are like a lot of online sessions, or I mean, I'm sure in YouTube, there are so many videos now. Just spend a little bit of time trying to learn these alphabets, mainly because you are going to benefit from it a lot more. Okay, somebody is saying that they're not able to see the screen. Is that right?
I think they said they can see it now.
Oh, they can, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you. So before I proceed, so these are the alphabets, for instance, to represent ka, kha, ga, gha, or ta, tha, da, dha. I just took these examples, but then of course we can also write for cha, cha, ja, jha, ta, tha, da, dha, pa, pha, ba, bha, and alphabets like that. But I just took few just for representation purpose, but this holds true for every other alphabet which appears in these languages. So the advantage of, so there was this one question, which was a very good question, which was asked about why Telugu potentially or Sanskrit, is because these languages have lot more alphabets, which is ka, kha, ga, gha, separate representations of each of these sounds. Okay. And what we call as basically ka as a alpa prana, or the sound which takes lesser breath control or breath power from your lungs. Kha is considered as a mahaprana, or something which takes a higher level of breath when you pronounce that alphabet. So there is a clean distinction between these alphabets. Even in things like when you sing Sri Gananatha Sindhura Varna, there are these alpa prana, mahapranas. So it is, again, those are some things which also it is very good to be aware of when you are singing, right? But what happens is certain languages, like in this context, it will be Tamil, right? What happens is when you write it in the scriptural language, all these alphabets will basically get aggregated into one alphabet, which is what is written as Ka on the left, Ta is on the right. If who cannot read Tamil, basically this is what is it, is Ka and Ta. And this is what is used in common for ka and ga, kha, ga, and the for ta, tha, da, tha. So these are context-based interpretations you need to make. So now you can already see that the moment there is an interpretation, there is a problem, right? I mean, what I think is the right word can be a wrong word, or if a Sanskrit word is written in Tamil, it can be interpreted in different ways. But of course, Tamil has its own set of alphabets too, like Ra, which does not exist in the above 4 languages, for instance. And pronouncing those alphabets well is also very important, because that's the beauty of the language, and that is also very important. Okay, so I will take a little bit of examples later, but this hopefully gives an idea of how in Sanskrit or Telugu, in Kannada and Hindi, for instance, all these alphabets exist. And this, so if you can read the lyrics in these languages, potentially the Sanskrit and Telugu languages, the scripts written in at least in Devanagari, then it will be very helpful for you to interpret the lyrics very well later. Okay, so let's look at this example. This is my guru's favorite example, where I also think, it basically covers all the alphabets, which is ta, tha, da, dha in just one line. Okay, before I sing, can somebody tell which kriti is this from? Some student, I don't know. If you have learned it, you can tell potentially.
Yeah, many have learned it. They should be able to.
Oh, okay. So then I'm sure they have to tell this.
Yeah, it's in the chat window. Somebody has answered. Shruti and Shravya.
Somebody has answered. Wonderful. Excellent. So that's right. So it is Guru Leka Ituvanti's Charanam. This is the first line of the Charana. Typically, the line which is, I would say, killed the most while singing. Tanuvu Sutta Dhana Dara Dayadi Bandhavulu. So these are the order of the alphabets in this, which is Ta, Tanuvu, Sutta, Ta. It's not Sudha. Dhana, it's not Dhana. Dhana in this context is wealth. If you're seeing it Dhana, it will become cows. That's not what Tyagratha Swami is meaning here. Dara, Dara is wife in this context, or woman. Dayadi, relatives. Bandhavulu. So it's like first relatives, second relatives. I mean, he's basically saying in that context of the Charana how it is going. So Tanuvu Sutta Dhana Dara Dayadi Bandhavulu Tanuvu Sutta Dhana Dara Dayadi Bandhavulu. So this line. So this is something which will be very nice when you work on, or when you practicing with some awareness to where is Alpa Prana, where is Mahaprana, where is the and where is the. It will take some time. It is not easy. It will be difficult, especially if you're not used to these languages. But as I said, this dhana is a common word which will appear in many songs. It will automatically strike to you when you're singing the word dhana, for instance, like that. So then heading to, there is also a very nice difference between Tarani and Dharani in this context. So Tarani means sun, Dharani means earth. If you just change this one alphabet. So where I'm heading is, do not replace the words Tarani with Dharani when you sing, and then Dharani with Tarani. The reason is because Dharani Tanaya is Sita, Tarani Kula Sanjata Tyagarajanuta. There, Angit Dharani Padakudada, because here it is Tarani Kula Sanjata, where Tarani in this context now becomes sun. Ravikula, who is the representation of the Ravikula, which is Rama. And that is what is whom Tyagaraja is praying here. So Dharani Kula does not mean anything in this context if you sing Dharani Kula Sanjata, for instance. So like this, it is very important to be a little bit aware of the lyrics. And another beauty of this lyrics here in this Dharani Kula Sanjata Tyagarajanata line is also the alliteration which Tyagaraja Swami is making in this lyrics, which is Tarani and Tyaga. So these sort of alliterations, he was a king in this. So he makes it in every kriti potentially. And again, that is another, you will break those poetry if you start changing lyrics, right? So again, that's something which you can keep in mind. This is my guru's favorite line. So Has anybody learned this kriti? Majanaki chatta battaga, students?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay, that's fine. So in right. So in Majanaki, I'll just give you a context on how things can drastically mean different by just replacing the chatta battaga with chatta battaka, which is what everybody sings. Ma Janaki chatta battaga, Ma Janaki chatta battaga. So that kriti. So there, what Tyagaraja Swami is intending is, Rama, you became such a big king and you got so much fame because you held the hands of my mother Janaki, or Sita in this context, right? Which is chatta battaga, which is chatta is kai and he held it. He held it. That's what it's saying. If you sing Ma Janaki chatta battaka, it's the opposite of that, which is in Telugu ka, the moment you put a ka in the end, apparently it becomes an opposite of the word, which is, oh Rama, you became so popular and such a great king by not holding the hands of Janaki. So such simple things can mean drastically different, and such small corrections can add a lot of value to your Sahitya Bhava when you sing. And also the awareness of just the fact that Tyagaraja is saying this meaning to this line itself gives you a lot more feel when you sing those lines, is what I think too. Let's get to the another commonly made mistake, Saraguna Palimpa. It is not Saraguna Palimpa. That's what everybody mostly sings, but it has to be Saraguna Palimpa. This is Na versus Na. As I was already telling you in Sri Gananatha, Gananatha, both alphabets appear there, right? Like that, Saraguna Palimpa is correct. And in before I head, can someone tell what is the kriti for this line, the last one which I have in the slide? Dharanija Bhagavata Gresaru Levaro Varellaru. Which kriti line is this? Students?
Whoever knows the answer can unmute and answer.
Dharanija Bhagavata Gresaru Levaro Varellaru. Dharanija Bhagavata. Okay, Sita Mamayama. Okay, that's the kriti, which is a very popular Vasanta kriti. So in this, it is Dhara Nija is mostly sung, but it has to be Dhara Nija Bhagavata Gresaru. What Tyagaraja Swami is hinting here is, in this earth, Nija Bhagavatas, he's saying the true Bhagavatas and the Agresaras, who are all there, to all of them, I basically bow down. So it's a very similar meaning, like the way he says in Endaru Mahanubhavlu, right? So it's a very similar meaning what he's invoking here, and which is why Dhara Nija, because otherwise Dhara Nija will completely kind of destructure that line and it will lose that meaning again. So that is something which, again, a small example which will make a big difference, right? And these are few words which, again, getting back to the Alpa Prana, Mahaprana alphabets I was mentioning earlier, this is from a bit more musicality perspective. So probably you may have heard this kriti Shanmukha in Shanmukha Priya, which is Siddhi Vinayaka Manisham. So when you sing this Siddhi Vinayakam, Siddhi Vinayakam versus Siddhi Vinayakam Anisham. So that's a Mahaprana sound, Siddhi. And it will be very nice if you can actually try to bring out that sound when you sing the song, which is Siddhi Vinayakam Anisham Chintaya Myaham Siddhi Vinayakam. Just having the little bit of awareness. I mean, I agree. There are sangatis like Siddhi Vinayakam. When you sing those sangatis, it will become hard to bring such sounds. But you can at least have, or at least set the minds of the listeners when you start the kriti, in the right lyrics, so that now you have tuned the minds of the listener, and then they're ready to take anything you sing pretty much after that. So it's like that, right? So another thing which I find difficult, I'm sure for students too, it'll be true, is maintaining the Shruti Shuddham when you're singing these Mahaprana alphabets can be very difficult. So you can, like, Siddhi is harder to sing than Siddhi in Shruti, right? So Siddhi Vinayakam. So when you practice, you can have some more awareness and practice clearly. Am I sounding in Shruti and am I singing the alphabet clearly? So something which adds a lot of value to your singing. And also, Yenduku Pedale is typically how it is sung, but it will sound very good if it is sung as Yenduku Pedale Vale Buddhi Niyavu Yenduku Pedale. So Peddala is the word in Sanskrit. So Pedda means which is big. So in this case, it is Peddala. So keeping at least first few sangatis, if we can pronounce that as Peddala and set that listener's mind as Peddala. So then when you sing sangatis like Yenduku Peddala, will be fine. But just those little things. Yeah,
So,
Lalit?
Harsha, there are a couple of questions.
Oh, yeah.
I'd
Sorry, I
like to
didn't.
ask them now. So, these are in the chat window. I'm going to read the question and I'm going to um,
Somehow the
interpret
chat
them, I think, the
disallows
way. What
for
is
me.
that?
Somehow the chat yeah, now I can finally see the chat. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the first question is, when I was a kid, I learned the Geethams with a little different words like Kere, Niranu, Keruga, Jala, and now as an adult, I hear it differently. So I think the way I would interpret that question is, if there, like for example, you said Enduku Peddala, right? The way you learn it from a guru, there is a certain patantram in which you learn it, and then you realize that okay, we have to make some adjustments for lyric. So how do you reconcile that with what you have learned? If there is any discrepancy, how do you go about that?
So that is a very good question. So the simple answer to that is, when it comes to the lyrics, it is, I would consider more importance to actually talking to the native speaker and trying to get the clarity of the lyrics from that native speaker, and asking for the right lyrics, because there can certainly be wrong patantara which has been propagating in the school of music, right? I mean, for that sake, I can't keep singing. In fact, that example which is written, that jelly, is a wonderful example which exactly represents what I was telling before, which is in Sanskrit. Again, there are alphabets which are cha, cha, ja, ja, and all of them are sometimes represented using either ja or cha in when you write it in Tamil, for instance, right? So when you write in Tamil and read the lyrics of Kannada, it can be very confusing, and if you do not know the language, it will get only harder. So I would strongly suggest talk to a Kannada speaking person in that case, for instance. It will be immediately obvious that it is Kereye Neeranu Kerege Challi. Challi means to spill back. Kere is a lake. So all Purandaradasa is saying is, all our life is all about taking the water from the pond or a lake or an ocean, and all we are doing is we are giving it back to the lake. That's all what is happening in this context. So it's so for instance, for Telugu, for instance, I just contact my guru. I mean, a lot of great musicians, they just call him and ask him, okay, is this word correct to sing? Just so that it's clear to you in the meaning. So I would say that would be the shortest answer for how to sing the right thing.
Thank you. There are a couple more questions. It's very quickly. So this probably you're going to address later, but I just want to read out the questions. Why do some singers have Kalpana Swarams for a very long time and why some don't? I think the question is, so she's asking, is there an unsaid rule when you can do Kalpana Swaram, when you cannot? So I think the question is there a certain line that you are not supposed to do a Kalpana Swaram, or not suitable for doing Kalpana Swaram? That is one. And then the second question is, can you please explain the Alpa Prana and Mahaprana with an English language comparison for better understanding for students?
That is a very good, relevant question. So let's see. So I don't know. I mean, Lalit, you're also welcome to pitch in if you have any such ideas right away on top of the mind, which is like the difference between like Siddhi versus Endu.
So the way I would explain it is Mahaprana is basically aspirated consonants, right? So anything that has a H will become an aspirated consonant, like where or who. So where there's more breath expelled for pronouncing that consonant. So any Mahaprana is probably similar to that. And Alpapranas are uh,
Correct.
simple consonants, non-aspirated consonants.
Non-aspirated consonants that's a very good way to kind of look at it. Yes, exactly. What should we do to help our kids to appreciate the bhava of the kritis? So the best answer is for that is I would strongly say uh, when you learn a kriti. So for instance, when you learn things like Kereya Niranu, right, it'll be like Kereya Niranu Kerege Challi. You'll learn like word by word, bits by bits, because you want to make sure that what you're learning is correct, the tune is good, shruti is good, everything is good. And then make sure you go over the entire lyrics of the kriti with the teacher, sit with the teacher asking, okay, does this make sense? What is the meaning of this song? It's not just about learning the song, but then make sure you spend that additional, I mean, you go that extra mile and sit with the teacher and get the explanation of the lyrics. And I would say that would be the best way to understand the bhavam of the kriti. And which is what we also do. So for instance, when we learn the kriti, we don't really understand most of it, because you need to first focus on the grammar and musicality of the song, aesthetics of the kriti, and then revisit the kriti with the teacher and completely understand the lyrics, where to split, how to split, things like that. So, and then you will automatically be able to appreciate the bhavam of the kritis. And as parents, I'm sure you can also kind of, now there is Google and there are so much resources. You can always look at some online meanings and get a big picture of the meaning of the song. So for instance, I was saying, right, Bharavina is on goddess Lakshmi, for instance. Such basic things can be helpful a lot, can take the kids long way. I mean, they'll know how to think about it as they start growing and learning more. Okay, great. So those are some few examples, and just the way we stress on the alphabets of Mahapranas or Alpapranas in Sanskrit and Telugu or in Kannada, as I was mentioning earlier, Ra is a beautiful alphabet in Tamil. Which, first of all, it is not Tamil or Tamil; it is Tamil. That itself is the word how you pronounce it, and Ra alphabet has to sound very good. That is something which I feel very bad when I do not hear those distinguishing sounds between that la and ra. All the three alphabets have to sound very good when you are singing. So I would say this line, before I head, again, you know what my question is. Can someone tell me from which kriti is this line, which I have in the last line? Oops.
I don't think
Probably not.
anybody
Okay.
knows this
Since
composition.
it was a very popular song. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I can sing it. So if you can basically perfect just this one line, I would say, I mean, remaining lines are also very hard. That's different. But in that song, oh, beautiful. Somebody answered that it's Alai the Kanna. Exactly. That is right. That's the last line of the Charanam. It's by Utukadu Venkatakavi, composer whom I was mentioning earlier, pre-Trinity composer. குழலூதிடும் பொழுது ஆடிடும் குழைகள் போலவே மனது வேதனை மிகவோடு. So that is the split of the alphabets, right? So when you work, you can slowly do this. குழலூதிடும் பொழுது ஆடிடும், and it is not adidum or something like that, right? It's all capital D's. Kulaigal. So there is a ra and la, which is pretty hard to sing in that speed when you're singing. Kulaigal polave, smaller L. Manadu vedane migayodu. But when you sing that together, when you sing it in the right way, it sounds very beautiful for the listener, which will be குழலோதிடும் பொழுது ஆடிடும் குழைகள் போலவே மனது வேதனை மிகவோடு அலைப்பாயுதே கண்ணா. Like that. So like that, there are so many kritis. I can name hundreds of kritis where Ra is extremely an important alphabet, but that's one of the examples. So how are we doing with time, Lalit? Do I have some more time to talk about the more
Yes,
like the...
yes, Harsha. We have time. We have 20-25 minutes. No problem.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's look at some correct splitting in the Sahitya for the right Sahitya Bhava from now on. Okay. So question. So which Kriti is this line from? I'm sure at least one should answer this correctly.
Vatapi Ganapatin.
Exactly. Beautiful. So this line, if you hear most of the recordings, in fact, this was an eye-opening thing for me when I was talking to my guru recently. So Nijava Makara Vidhrite Kshudandam is mostly what you hear in the recordings. Nijava Makara Vidhrite Kshudandam is the right split apparently. So it should be Nijava Makara Vidhrite Kshudandam. Such small things when you are singing, it can invoke the bhava of the lyrics because the Kara Vidhrite Kshudandam will be much clearer when you are singing. And for example, that one. Deva Deva Kalayami. Deva. So this is a nice, interesting thing because when you ask someone which kriti are you going to sing, so saying things like Deva Deva Kalayami Te, I'm going to sing. Yenta Ninne is what I'm going to sing in Mukari, for instance, right? You know, even there in those small things, you can be a little bit, aware of how you say and what you say the lyrics. So, for instance, in Deva Deva Kalayami, Te Charanambuja Sevanam. That's the split. So when you sing and stop, for instance, this is the most popular spot where everybody stops, which is Deva Deva Kalayami Te Charanambuja Sevanam. Karayami te charanambuja sevanam deva deva kalayami. Stopping at kalayami will make a big difference because te charanambuja becomes the next sentence and you can, sound much better and kind of with more bhava emotion. Like for instance, Anthony never nintunu shabari, right? It's not Anthony ne. There's no ninne in it. So things like that. This is another very nice example, which is one of my favorites. Raju vedale juta murare is how it is split. There is no murare here. There is no murari in this context. It is all Tyagaraja Swami is saying is there is a procession going on. Come, let's all go see, witness it. Which is Jutamu in Telugu means let's see. Rare is Wango or come, let's all go. That's what he's saying. So Jutamu Rare, Jutamu Rare. Splitting that word rare will make it sound so much more aesthetic. Raju edale jutamu rare kasturi ranga. Raju edale jutamu rare and it's like saying, Wango, let's go see. That's the sort of meaning you should imagine in your, mother tongue potentially, and then try to translate and sing it in the right splitting of the words. Typically, the splitting of the Sahitya can become very difficult, especially with breath control and evoking the lyrics and the Sahitya Bhava when you're singing in 3/4 Kritis. So this is kind of one of the most popular kriti which in Carnatic music we all sing. Again, some question to the students. Can you tell me which kriti is this?
Panduriti Guru.
Beautiful. That's right. Now I'm not going to stress on all the Mahapranas, Alpapranas, and the distinctions between the capital N, small n. Now we have understood that we are all going to follow those rules now. Okay. So now we have headed to where do we split so that we are meaningful. Tunta vintivani modalaina mada. Standing in Sajjam there and expanding is probably not a good idea. So instead, what you can do is Tunta vintivani modalaina Tunta vintivani మొదలైన మదారుల బట్టి నెల గూలజేయునికే వంటు రీతి కోరు వియవయ్యరమ. So Madadula Batti Nela is the word. So what you can say is you can save it for the next line so that when you stop in Modalaina, it will also be a lot more meaningful as a sentence. And then you are also not packing with too many alphabets in single line. And then it will also sound very good when you are singing, for instance. Vatatmaja Dulachintane Vatatmaja Dulachintane. Which Kriti? Students?
Sitapate.
Wonderful. So Vatatmaja. So what happens is most of these 3/4 Tedupu Kritis, Tyagaraja Swami kind of popularized it, I would say, and only after his time was when more or less this style of singing in 3/4 Tedupu came. And of course, many composers after that made wonderful compositions like Patnam Subramanian and all these composers. But in this song, so what happens is in this rhythm, the way the lyrics is set is into this chanda, which is like takkatom tatta takkatom tatta takkatom tatta takkatom tatta. So that is how the lyrics is split, and it is much easier when you sing like that, right? Which will be like Vatatmaja Dulachintane Varninchinani Palukulalla is the thing. But what makes the lyrics a bit to evoke the Sahitya a bit more is Vatatmaja Dulachintane Vatatmaja Dulachintane Vatatmaja Dulachintane. Another small thing there is we hear a lot of sangatis, let's say for instance like Vatatmaja Dulachinta. It's better to avoid such words, mainly because in Telugu the word meaning of the word dula is a completely negative meaning which you do not want to invoke when you're singing in a song, for instance. It means itching, basically. You know, there's no itching in this me line, right? So it is Vatatmaja Dula, which is a single word, which is like, you know, Vatatmaja, which is Anjaneya, is right next to you and he has been hearing you. Can you please tell me what is Rama talking? Because he doesn't talk to me. That is what basically Tyagaraja Swami is telling here. So Vatatmaja Dulachintane Varninchina Ni Palukulalla Ni Palukulalla, which is your words, you know. So such small enhancements, in my opinion, can start sounding beautiful. And also you will sound like you know what you're singing, you know. Another famous line, Marugelara Marugela Chara Chara Rupa Parat Parasurya Sudha Karalochana Marugelara. Things like that, right? Parat Parasurya Sudha, it's not Karalochana, it is Sudhakara Lochana. Things like that. But in this particular composition of Patnam Subramanian, that sort of rhythmical structure of the chanda, what we are talking about, if you maintain that, it will be perfectly fine. So the idea is that you cannot apply the same formula everywhere, and you have to be a bit more Sahityam aware when you sing is this. Darida Puleni Najali Dichi Darida Puleni Najali Dichi Dayachesi Dukanyayama. Like that. So when you are basically there, you don't have to worry too much of the split because the rhythmic structure and the Sahitya structure perfectly matches, and you can happily sing that Kriti taking breath at those spots and it'll be perfect, right? So things like that. So another thing which I wanted to hint on is when you add alphabets like A, when you repeat a Sangati, it would be very important to be again a little bit more careful when you sing these. So for example, what I mean is Vatapi Ganapatim Bhaje Aham Bhaje Aham is the split for Bhaje Ham, right? But then when you do such split, you have to be a little bit careful because singing the word aham does not necessarily sound good. So it is better to avoid such splits. When you add that up, you can be a bit careful. But and in, for instance, Jnanamo Sagarada, Garuda Gamanavada Jnanamo Sagarada. It sounds very nice to sing this. It'll be very wonderful to sing with the mridangam like this. But what you are really singing is Garuda Gamanavada Ajnanamo Sagarada. You're asking for Ajnanamo Sagarada, which is, you're asking for Ajnana, which we do not have to. Instead, you have to ask for Jnana, which is Jnanamo Osagarada, that's the split. So being a bit careful will be very nice there. Stop. If possible, give us a little bit of silence. Similarly, Satyambu Nityambu Shamaramuna Shauryambu Satyambu. If you do that, it will become Asatyambu. So that's not what the composer is saying. It is Satyambu Nityambu. So things like that, being a little bit careful will be very nice. But in the Charanam of, for instance, there is a song in Isha Manohari where Srishti Brishti Nashti Jayuvanula Nikrishta Manuchu Trimurtula Kosagi Santushtulai Parage Sadbatavano Bhishta Mudir Chetyagarajanutuni. There it is Parage Santushtulai Parage Sadbatamano Abhishtamudir Chetyagarajanuduni Abhishtamudir Che. If you sing like that, it will sound still very good and you can sound full. Another classic example, which again, we can work on making it sound good, is a classic song which is in Purandaradasa's song, which is Jagadodharan Adisidale. It is sung like that, but it has to be Adisidalu, which is where she's playing with Krishna, right? That's what is told in the lyrics, which is Adisidalu or Adisidale Shodha. If you want to split it, it should be Adisidalu Yashodha Jagado Dharana Adisidale Shodha. So in order to take a breath, Adisidale Shodha. If you split it like that, then what happens is that whole Sahitya Bhava is lost because it is the Yashoda and it's not Shodha, right? So Adisidale Shodha. If you can sing like that, sing it as a single word and it will sound much better. Adisidalu Yashodha. And that split will still also sound very good. Things like that. This would be something which, Lalit's favorite song, which is Prana Sakuditu Jesene. It is a Javali. Here, I'm sure you all, if I just say Prana Sakuditu Jesene, you wouldn't even know which Javali I'm talking about, more or less. But if I say Sakhi Prana, so then it'll be very clear. But again, the split of the word is this way, right? Which is, oh friend, which is Sakhi. Look what my soulmate has done, which is Prana Sakuditu Jesene. So when you sing also, you can evoke that bhava by splitting the word from Sakhi and Prana. Prana Sakuditu Jesene Sakhi Prana Sakuditu Jesene Sakhi Prana, things like that. So, you're saying Sakhi and then you're addressing Sakhi. So that sort of a little bit of awareness will sound very, very, very good. I would like to talk about a little bit of Manodharmam. And in this context, when I was talking to my guru, he had a very good point. He was saying the real Manodharmam or creativity, it really lies in the ability to, even just while presenting a composition, right, which we consider as there is no Manodharmam in it, right? But when you just present a composition, it is really the ability to decide where to take breath and where to split and where not to split the lyrics. There itself, you need to think a lot when you sing, and making the music still sound good. It is not at the cost of the aesthetics of the music. So, which is in Shruti and Laya, which is Laya Shuddham and Shruti Shuddham, and making the song sound meaningful. That itself is itself a lot of creativity which is necessary when you sing and when you practice with that awareness, right? But we can look at a few examples which are some of the ideas of my gurus and my gurus gurus, and in that lineage of music, what they have thought about. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. Let's see.
Nothing new, Harsha.
Okay, great. So Jnanamosagarada, this is probably the most popular one, so I'll first cover that. Nerval line, maybe a little bit advanced students. Maybe can you sing what is the most popular Nerval line in Jnanamosagarada, for instance? Anybody wants to pitch in or sing a little bit? Jnanamosagarada Paramatmudu Jivatmudu Padunalugu Lokamulu Paramatmudu. So in this line, exactly. So somebody also replied. Okay, somebody has asked a question. Do you suggest any particular musicians for looking at the correct pronunciation and splits? For example, BMK or MDR. I do not want to certainly bias towards any single musician, because a lot of musicians, as I said, in the last 40 years have been working very hard towards this to make sure that the lyrics sounds good. I have some list of musicians which I will go through, which you can which I can highlight and mention who is great and who really gave a lot of importance. Certainly, first name which comes to my mind in the top is obviously MS Subbulakshmi, because she spent a lot of time with the native speakers of every language she sang and made sure that she sounded like the native speaker. So she took a lot of effort. So obviously, it would be a very good example, for instance. So in Jnanamosagarada, getting back to the Purvi Kalyani Kriti, this is something which has been interpreted very well. So a lot of people have thought about it, which is, instead of singing this line, which is Paramatmudu Jivatmudu, which is an incomplete line because there is no sentence formed in it. It is just a few words which are formed, and it starts sounding like nice to sing Nerval. But if you really want to have more Sahitya Bhava in Nerval, which evokes the lyrics and the bhakti and intent of the composer, so then potentially परिपूर्ण निष्कलंक निरवधि सुखदायक परिपूर्ण निष्कलंक निरवधि सुखदायक परिपूर्ण निष्कलंक निरवधि Sukhadayaka Paripurna. So, the combination of words Tyagaraja Swami is using to describe the deity in this, it just sounds so aesthetic and so nice, these two lines. So why not Nerval in this? So I think there was a question asked in how to choose a line for Manodharma. I was not really intending to get to that sort of more like the Carnatic technicality of choosing, but one simple answer is you have to make sure that there are not too many words to sing the Nerval in that line, because I'm sure once you start singing Nerval, you would know how difficult it is to sing Nerval. And if you choose a lot of words, then it becomes very difficult to sing Nerval. And then you have to make sure that the Nerval lyrics, the number of cycles of the Avartana you choose, Avartana or the cycle of the Tala, should be in even number. So that is very important, which is Paripurna Nishkalanka, 2 cycles. Niravadi Sukhadayaka, 2 cycles. So that makes an even number. So for example, do not choose a line which just spreads around 3 avartanas of the Tala. I mean, that's like a practice which is followed because it will be helpful for the mridangam player and for the violinist and for the listener also. It will sound much better that way. So that is some technical detail on how to choose the Nerval, but there are also certainly many more from musicality aspect, which we don't have to get into now. But since the focus is on Sahitya.
Just a quick comment, Harsha, before you proceed. There is somebody who's drawing all over the slides. If you could please stop doing that, that would be very helpful. Secondly, question for you, Harsha, on that. So you said that it is preferable to choose even number of lines for Neraval, correct?
Yes.
So if you're doing like a Chaukakala Kriti, like a Rendukalai Adi Talam, for example, okay, let's take it back. So is it not preferable to do Neraval for just a single line, even if the meaning is completed? Do you prefer doing it for a longer line?
If it is a Chaukakala Aditalam Kriti, certainly one line is possible, right? Because we have sing like Veda Shastra Tattva, Arshamo, like Peddala, Meenakshami Mudams, Charanam. So they can be certainly one. Like, typically double or Rendukalai Aditalam is perfectly fine to basically do Nerval in one line. Or even if it is single line, Aditalam line also is fine if it is a complete sentence. It's totally fine too. It's just that typically if it is like a Mishra Chapu or shorter talas like Rupaka Tala, it's advised not to pick lines which form 3 avartanas or 5 avartanas, something like that.
Thank you, Harsha.
Sure. So another example which I also love is this last one, which is the Vadera Daivam Manasa. So it's a Kriti in Pantuvarali by again Tyagaraja Swami, right? So in this one, Vadera Daivamu Manasa, the charanam of this is Dhatrivinu Daina Tyagarajuni Dhatrivinu Daina Tyaga. Oh, this is an example of one line which is sung very often, okay? Takita Dhatrivinu Daina Tyagarajuni Dhatrivinu. So it sounds very nice to sing with Mridangam, singing Moonithalli songs. It's always fun to sing Kalpanas for us. It's beautiful, right? But can we be a bit more creative and think from the lyrics perspective, if I have to sing which evokes more bhava, can I sing something different? So it was very interesting. So for this Kriti, this was again my guru's idea. So his idea was this. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to pick the line which is the first line of a charana or an anupallavi. It can be more or less any line. I've even heard great musicians singing Nerval in the pallavi line of a song, just in the first line itself, right? Nothing wrong in it. So in this song, where it sounds very well is something like this. Chilgundi baguga pratyotananmaya munanu janinchi Sitapatiyani peru galigina is the last line of the charana, which is Sitapatiyani peru galigina, which is basically, Tyagaraja is saying, you got the name as Sitapati. You became more popular as Sitapati and more than Rama. That is how he's saying in this line. And then he connects it back to the line Vadera Daivu Manasa. Sitapati ani peru galigina Vadera Daivamu Manasa. Vadera Daivamu Manasa is Vadera. You are the one who is the Daivam of in my Manas. That is the line, right? So now, how about connecting this last line of Charana and the Pallavi first line and singing a Nerval, which is still like 2 avartanas? It will sound a complete sentence, so much Bhavam, And still you can sing all the fun Kalpana Swarams also in this line, right? Sitapatiyani perugaligina vadera daivamu manasa Sitapati Sitapatiyani perugaligina vadera Daivamu manasa Sitapati Manasa Daivamu manasa Vadeyara Daivamu manasa Sitapatiyani Verugaligina Vadera Daivamu manasa Sitapatiyani Verugaligina Sitapati. So just you can, so when do you get these ideas? Of course, that's why, as I said, talk to your teachers, understand the lyrics of the song, what is the intent of the composer, and automatically you will come up with such creative ideas which will, potentially you will be the first person to sing Nerval in those lines. That could be how it could be. So next one certainly would be really the mind-blowing example, which is in Ramani Samana Memaru, right? Which is a very popular kriti, again by Tyagaraja Swami, and legendary Nerval line, Paluku paluku alaku teni aloluku matala tu baluku baluku laku tene. So this line is very nice. With all due respect to great musicians, there is nothing, it can be sung. It's just an interpretation of my guru's guru, where his suggestion was, he was a great composer and a very big Sanskrit scholar by himself. So his idea was that sentence is apparently still an incomplete sentence, because the completion of that sentence comes only if you sing the entire charana until that whole Sodarala Tyagaraja line, right? We can't keep singing Nerval for 6 lines. It is so hard to sing Nerval just in 2 lines. And if you have to keep track of 6 lines, then it becomes almost intractable beyond some point. So for this, in Anupallavi, the lyrics is extremely cute, sweet, and beautiful, complete, and which can be sung as a very nice Nerval. And this was my guru's interpretation again, and which goes like this. Bhamamaruvam pumolaka bhatyane panjara puchiluka. These are the 2 lines. Bhama maruvampu malaka bhaktyane panjarapu chiluka. So they rhyme. They have all alliteration, what is necessary for a beautiful Nerval. The words are sweet. They don't sound harsh. Bhama maruvam pumolaka bhatyane panjara puchiluka. Bhama maruvam pumolaka bhatyanu panjara puchiluka. Bhama maruvam pumolaka. Something like that. Something which is nice. When you practice also, you have some new interpretations of lyrics. Another thing, what in my personal experience, I'm sure Lalit would also agree with this, which is when you start singing Nerval in new lines, you would actually realize that when you're creating phrases, maintaining the Shruti Shuddham in different alphabets, in a different combination of alphabets, you're training your mind towards that too, which is not easy, because, Sangatis, yes, it's a muscle memory which you have practiced, you know how to sing. But the moment you pick up a new line, Bhama, your Daivatam has to be in Shruti when you're singing Bha, which is a Mahaprana. Have you practiced that, for instance? Right? So things like that. There are details you can practice when you practice at home and learn, and also which will sound very good when you perform, which will be a lot of Bhavam. So this maybe I can take any questions. I see there are a lot of questions in the chat, Lavit.
So I had a question. I don't think there is any new question, but if you have questions, please ask them now. I have a question before anybody else goes. This was a question by one of my students, Akshara. She's also in the on the call. So she was working on, I forget which kriti she was working on Neraval. I think it was Sudamai. Um,
Uncle, I was working on Shambhu Mahadeva. Sorry
Shambho,
to interrupt.
Shambho Mahadeva. No, but you had a question for Sudamai. The question was, when you choose, when you do like it might be either a Sangati or a Neraval variation for that line. Okay, so if you're choosing a certain line and you change the starting point in the octave for that line in the Neraval or in the Sangati, can you proceed with Kalpana Swarams for that variant of that line, or are you supposed to come back to the original original tune? Are you allowed to do that? And corollary to that is, are you allowed to change the yedam or yedupa of that line in order to do interesting Kalpana Swarams or Neraval?
So I think it is a very context-based answer to that. So for this example, I don't know if you could sing and show me what was the idea of that line, what you had for the Sudamai line. Maybe
Akshara, do you want to show that example?
Yes, Uncle. One second. I'm not sure. I'll recollect for a second. Sorry.
Right. So, but changing the idiom of the song, I think belongs to, it is a lot of school of thought again. People can always argue saying, I can be creative by, for instance, that Dhatrivinu Tudina Tyarajuni Dhatru Dhatru Dhatrivi Taka Dhatrivinu Tudina. There is also a Padantaram which is Renditalli song. Some people believe that Tyagaraja wouldn't have composed a song for us to sing Moonu Thalli Neraval or Swaram.
So one example that's coming to my mind is Muruga Tirumal Muruga in Harikambodi. கருணை கடலே உன்னை கணமும் பிரியேன் கந்தா கருணை. So you can change that edam to ஒன்னு தள்ளி அரை இடம் or முக்கால் இடம். So I have seen interpretations within the same presentation, like you do the Neraval at Samam, for example, or at Arayadam, something that's very simple. But when you get to the Swarams, you want to sing that one.
Yes. So
one
when you
fourth,
get to the Swaram, you
you
want to
want
sing
to
that
sing
one,
Swaram, you change the Edam. Is that allowed?
one Veshamam Edam, right? So that you can
Correct.
have a little bit more interesting thing. I think certainly when you practice at home, it is very, very, very important to practice in every possible way to kind of interpret and try to be creative and be comfortable with singing in different ways. And I think in the spirit of music, when you are performing and if you feel like it is very natural, you have a very good mridangam player, you want to sing it, just go ahead, sing it. It's fine. But certainly do not, again, that dhatra vinutu, when you're singing, for instance, in that example or in this Karunai, in Karunai, it's a wonderful line where you're not really going to spoil that, like the Dhirka Akshara of the alphabet. But in Dhatru, if you make it too short, or like Adisi Dalu to make it stylish, which is Adisi Dalu, then you're making it Adisi Dalu and it's not Adisi Dalu anymore, right? It's like that. So just that awareness and having that spirit of music, I think aesthetics and music will be perfectly fine. I think. My humble opinion.
I think Akshara is ready with her the line.
Yes, Uncle. Yes. So I think the kriti I was working on, particularly on my Vinay, was Sudhamai Sudhanidhi in Ragam Amritarshini. So we were doing Neraval, and for the Charanam line, Sarasi Jakshi Jagan Mohini, for that we went to the Neraval. Sarasi Jakshi Jagan Mohini. And then my teacher actually suggested to do Kalpana Swaram at that place. So Sarasi Jakshi Jagan Mohini. And then
So the song starts as Sarasi Jakshi, which is in Panchamam, but then you have shifted to Sajjam. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, with Neraval we've shifted to Sajjamam, and from that Neraval point, my teacher had asked me to do Kalpana Swaram. So I wanted to know if that was okay.
That's a difficult question. If I say no, that's not the right thing. If I say yes, also it is not the right thing. So typically in vogue, what is in practice is what is the original intent of the composer what is the tune of the song? Of course, one can question, how do we know what was the original tune? Yeah, then I don't know the answer. But at least from the school of thoughts, in different schools, we have learned kritis in a certain way. And if the tune, for instance, Sarasi Jakshi Jaganmohini, probably I think it'll be nice to sing the swara to that Sarasi Jakshi, which is in Panchamam. Sani Bani Mazarasi Jakshi. It still sounds wonderful. It's so then if we take the little bit of freedom, then what can happen is then I can sing in any location that line, right? So then why Arshadjam, right? I can even sing to make it more interesting. Sarasi Jakshi, Mabani Zani Basarasi Jakshi. Also I can sing. So then it is typically better, especially as a student of music, to stick to the original tune and try to be disciplined to sing the swaras to that spot, I would say. I don't know. What do you think, Lalit, about that?
So I agree with that generally. I think again it's up to interpretation. So my answer to Akshara was, this question came from, she's learning Veena from a different teacher. So she was advised to do this because swarams at higher sa were coming out better, or something like that, right? So my thing was, if it is a sangati that lends itself as a solid line, as a sangati and not like an Neraval line which is more fluid, then sure, you can go ahead and do it. But the line has to establish itself well in that tune. Once you do that, then you can proceed with the swaram. Like even Krishna here used to do that. Ramnath Krishnan would do that for Bhuvini Dasudane, right? You would, depending on where the line ends, Riga Madani Zari Bhuvini Dasudane Bhuvini Nida Mada. Instead of that, if you are ending on Ri, start from Sa. That kind of interpretation is still okay, as long as you are.
That is a very creative interpretation of the original tune of the Kriti, right? Still, because it is a different connection through that beautiful combination of notes coming back to Nida Mada, that sort of interpretation. Of course, that there is no doubt. I mean, that is perfectly allowed. The only question is, Bhuvinida Sudane. Let's say that I have changed the tune. Can I sing swarams to this line? Right. So it becomes a little bit odd in my opinion. But that Ramnath's idea is just. I mean, that's a wonderful idea.
The other example that I had was Brindama's example for Ramani Samanamevaru. So she would sing the charanam. That's how I've learned it also. That Paluku Paluku is again was the line chosen, and she would sing that line from Samam. Paluku Paluku Lakutene Paluku Paluku Lakutene Luluku. Everything was from Samam. But when she came to the Neraval and Swaram, it shifted to Aradam.
Right.
So that made more sense for Neraval. But the established tune was from Samam.
Right.
So again, that is another example where you are allowed to change it as long as it fits in the context and you are able to establish that line.
Yeah, even that I would take it with a bit of a carefulness, because I mean they were such great musicians where whatever they did sounded unbelievably good, and it will be at that level of aesthetics where they touch and it'll be gold sort of thing, right? I mean, that's how it will be. At least as a student of music, it may be good to right from starting maintain a certain level of discipline up to a certain point, and then once you have kind of naturally evolved into a very good musician, so then taking that little bit of freedom, I think is certainly good. Certainly good. Great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
No. I have a question.
Yes.
On the aspect of going with the composer's thoughts in composing a kriti, what is your opinion about kritis sometimes when singers think to start in an anupallavi? Like Balakanakamaya is so famous, but Balakanakamaya is only an anupallavi. Elarni Dayarada is what Nagaraja put as pallavi.
Right.
What is the thought on that? And I have two more questions, but I'll ask after you answer this.
That's perfectly fine. I mean, if it sounds bright, if it sounds beautiful, if it sounds meaningful. So let us say that the story is not made from the Pallavi, which continues to the Anupallavi, and there is an independent meaning which holds from the Anupallavi, which continues back to the Pallavi, I don't see any reason why it should not be done. For instance, the Pavamana, what we sing, the Mangalam is itself Anupallavi. I mean, that's the
Exactly.
that's the Pallavi line, for instance. So yeah, I mean, it's perfectly fine if it sounds bright and nice and just for a change.
But what if you go with the thought that if Pavamana was what Tyagaraja intended to be the first line, won't he have stated Pavamana as the first line?
Right. Okay. When I'm saying it is perfectly fine, I'm purely saying from the perspective of performing music, Carnatic music in the Kacheri Paddhati, right? Where everything has changed. If you ask my, for instance, great musicians or even my guru or his guru, he would even say there is no necessity even for Sangatis in a Kriti. The reason Sangatis were added, of course, to beautify the music, and then also to make something which sound like you're building upon something, and which sounds layer by layer, you construct this music which sounds grand and beautiful. Also, it was Tyagaraja's intent too. I mean, he himself had added a lot of Sangatis to Kritis, but probably not as many we add today. But the interpretation is, if it is pure lyrics interpretation, then it will more tend towards the Harikatha style of music, right? There, where you directly focus on the lyrics and completely do not worry about the Sangatis and musicality, versus, okay, how do I make my music also still sound bright and nice and still be not meaningless in what I say in the lyrics? So from that perspective, but would Tyagaraja like that question? After that answer, it is very hard to say.
The other question I had was Sahityam and Kala Pramanam. For instance, when songs which were probably, even if it is Balakanakamaya or Telisi Rama or whatever, people take it at a they go. But Elani Dayarada, when you come to it, it's more like a begging and, going very. So, what is the relation or the importance that people should give to the song and the Kala Pramanam and not take it just to pep concert or make it spicy? So what is the thought process for that to choose?
It's an absolutely beautiful
so that
question.
You are not rigging the Sahitya Bhavam.
It's a very beautiful question. Again, it's a very controversial answer. Again, it's as in, it's again, the answer is what I said in the previous question, which is music has, fortunately or unfortunately, has taken a lot of the form of Carnatic music. What you see today is because of all the Kacheri format, what we see, right? So Nenarunchi Nanu and Patti Vidavaradu were not composed as filler compositions by Tyagaraja Swami, right? I mean, Patti Vidavaradu is such an emotional kriti where he's saying, I mean, please do not leave my hands, please hold it tight. And that's the emotion he has. It's not the peppy kriti where you want to sing with, the full male kalam, vidangam and everything, right? But that said, great musicians, for instance, knew how to handle that balance of the emotion of the lyrics and still have that performing oriented brightness in the singing, or whatever that sort of kalai is what they say, right? What you can bring in your sing. So they had, certain musicians just had that. But answering to Elani Dayaradu type questions, yes, it is of utmost importance to keep that in the mind and try to be a little more thoughtful about what you want to sing and at what Kala Pramanam you want to sing, and how to bring the bhavam of the lyrics as much as possible. At the same time, you're also performing in a concert, so you can't be fully in pathos, right? I mean, people are not going to listen to you always. So it can be a bit of an edge of the sword issue, actually. What do you think, Lalit, for this question answer? I mean, this sort of for this interpretation.
Kala Pramanam in general is a very tricky thing, right? For great musicians, I always give the analogy with somebody like a Sachin Tendulkar or a Roger Federer, right? In a given space, if you are an established musician, if you have done that kind of sadhana, any Kala Pramanam you sing can sound slow. Any Kala Pramanam you sing can sound very relaxed. So if you are able to bring out the emotion of a kriti in a particular Kala Pramanam effectively, then you should. It is okay. If that is the aesthetic that you are going for in that, as long as you're not losing the Sahitya Bhavam, But just because some great musicians have done it in a certain kala pramanam, you are not required to do it in that kala pramanam. Like Pati Bidavaradu or Asai Mugam Tondrude, for example. That's another one that is DKJ used to sing it very fast. That doesn't mean that we are supposed to sing it like that. Right? So, that's my thought. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not sure if Harsha and Sujataka, you have met each other.
Oh,
I wanted to make a quick introduction. So, Srimati Sujata Srinivasan is a great dancer. She's a teacher here in Cleveland. Has many students that we mutually share also. So, I just wanted to make that quick introduction. Thank you so much, Sujataka, for coming and attending
Thank
the.
you so much.
oh,
Thank
my
you. But
pleasure.
of course, Sujata ji, I have seen you in Cleveland. I have met you, but it's just that probably we didn't connect because
Yeah.
I know Shreya fairly well, and I used to be her good friend, and we used to be on
Yes,
in
yes.
touch. So very nice that you made it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a very beautiful, well researched and well presented one. So, my takeaway, because I insist on the same aspects for learning the meaning and having the knowledge of the language before the student can emote to a certain expression. So, this topic is very dear to my heart because I insist on that. I don't teach a student if they don't come prepared with the lyrics, or I just stop them in between to ask. What does that mean? If you don't know, answer. So it's a very fond subject for me. So the takeaway I thought for students was to know allied languages, speak your mother tongue, so
Yes.
that all that alpa prana, all that I think for us we were able to understand. For many, it would have just flown over the head. So I think when you have a good teacher like Lalit or whatever, when they explain the meaning, I think students should pay more attention to the meaning of the song before they start singing it, so that they are able to reflect the author. I often say to my student that if Tyagaraja is sitting right there in the front row, he should be happy with how you are interpreting the song.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's very true.
Thank you
Especially
so much.
for instance, from the dance perspective, I can totally see how much even more important for interpreting the lyrics correctly. And but yeah, that's wonderful. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So
Lalit, for
I
featuring
think
us.
I'm going to almost wrap it up, Lalit, with this. So I just wanted to only point in this Vritam singing is very simple. Again, is that um, when you sing an improvisation in the Vritam, how to be um, typical mistakes done. I can maybe sing so that students can immediately be aware when they practice, which will be like. Sham. So let's take this word Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham, right? Typically, when you're singing this sort of Sanskrit lyrics, they all end in this sort of sounds, right? So when they end in such sounds, it's when you extend and improvise the word, you have to keep that word in the mind, which is Shantakaram. Wherever that those extended alphabets appear, it's good to add those sangatis there. Which, for example, Shantakaram, and right away close the sound of that word right there, so that it will still sound like the word Shantakaram and not like Shantakaram. It's better to avoid such phrases unless it has come very well in the flow of the music, but it's something which will be nice, and trying to use those spaces of the alphabets to expand. Bhujagashayanam. There is no space to expand that word. Just keep it short. Bhujagashayanam. Maximum. Bhujagashaya is not necessary, basically. There is a lot of other words where you can actually do such things, which is Padmanabham Suresham Suresham Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham. Things like that, right? So, and of course, what kind of raga you choose, how does that raga fit into the lyrics? There is a lot of thought process which you can put in when you practice, and that's something which you can observe a lot by listening to very good music by a lot of legendary musicians. So, which I'll get into very quickly. So like this, there are many rhythms which I can take examples. So for instance, if you take like in Tamil, when you are singing, it'll sound very beautiful if you keep the lyrics in the mind, and you can evoke the raga and the lyrics much better when you understand the meaning and then you sing it. So now I have just a little list of musicians who are all legends. I do think that students of music should spend a lot of time listening to very good music. It's not enough to say that, okay, I attended one live concert once a month. That's not going to work like that. So you have to listen to a lot of music in addition to all the learning you would do from the teacher. And for example, I had some musicians list here. I would like the students of music to kind of participate in this and tell me who these musicians are, so that I'll get some confidence that, okay, you guys can recognize this musician, which means you guys are hearing this musician. Okay. So let's look at this person. So who can name this musician? Preferably if you can just tell it in the audio, that'll be easier. Okay, I'm going to have opened my chat also, so that's fine too. So can someone name this musician on the slide? Wow, I thought someone would know for sure. Perfect.
Okay. Oh. I was kind of hoping that people are shouting out the answer, but they're on mute.
That's right. That is G.N. Balasubramaniam, who was a great legend in Carnatic music, who also composed a lot of compositions, and he was very well known for his. In fact, exactly the example for which Lalit was mentioning, at a high kala pramanam, maintaining that sort of still the feel of the lyrics and bhava of the raga, he was probably one of the legendary examples for that. This I'm sure everybody knows, so I don't even have to ask this question. This was M.S. Subbulakshmi. Certainly a must listen to the real right lyrics and how to evoke the meaning and bhava of the lyrics. Very, very makes a big difference. Who can recognize this musician? Students? I can give you a hint. He was the one who came up with the Kacheri Paddhati in which we sing today, which is starting from a Varnam, a Ganapati Kriti, sub-main, fast Kriti, main Kriti, maybe a Tirupugar, a little song on Purandaradasa.
I'll give everybody a hint. You know the answer and you're just thinking if it's right or not. Whatever you're thinking is the right answer. Okay.
Exactly. That's right. That is Arikudi Rama. That's right. That is Arikudi Rama Jayangar, who was one of the, again, legends. This may be hard, but I still wanted to see whether if some of you can recognize this musician. Students. One biggest hint is, of course, the instrument he is holding, which is the Nadaswaram. Can somebody recognize? Anyway, so okay, somebody did. Oh, I think this is Sujata ji who has replied. So students, I don't think could recognize, I guess, but that's fine. So this is T.N. Rajaratnam Pillai, who was, again, one of the legends in Nadaswaram, and a must listen for the students if you want to certainly improve your Raga Bhava, Sangeeta Bhava, everything. I mean, especially your Alapanais, right? I mean, just listening to him, in my opinion, is probably the best. All right, next musician. Who can tell the name of this musician?
Semmangudi.
Correct, very good. So this was Semmangudi Srinivas Iyer, a legend in, again, the whole Carnatic music arena, and mainly known for his Sarvalagu style of singing Narval and Kalpanaswaras, which is a must listen again for students of music to improve their style of singing a lot. This I'm pretty sure everybody knows. This is Sri Lalgudi Jayaraman sir, who is again a legendary violinist. Listening to his music is going to enhance your listening a lot. How about this musician? Students? எப்போ வருவாரோ எந்தன் கலிதீர எப்போ வருவாரோ. Okay, so that is Madurai Mani Iyer. Again, it is a must listen music, which at some point you all have to certainly loop his music for days and hours, if you want to understand what really Sarvalagu music could sound beautifully. This musician, can somebody recognize? Okay, so this is Palgat Narayan Swami or KV Narayan Swami, or what we call as KVN Mama. Again, diction, Sahityam clarity, purity in music, Shuddham, Shruti, Shuddham. I mean, just say it, right? I mean, he had everything. So really a must listen for all the students of music, and that too, many hours of listening. It will help a lot. This, I think every student should certainly know for being, Lalit students.
TM Mukta.
Correct. Very good. Exactly. So Brindama, Muktama, again, who are legends, and I consider them as like this sort of this mountains of music, right? I mean, the real epitome of aesthetics of music they had, and really, these are all some. These are again. I mean, there is no hard and fast rule. I mean, there are so many other great musicians whom you can listen to, but I just made a quick list of musicians in the last hour, so that I thought who were certainly worth listening and which can enhance your understanding of music a lot. And with this, I would like to thank my guru. I would like to acknowledge my guru, Sri T.K.V. Ramanujacharlu, for all his inputs, and of course, over years of inputs, and this week when I discussed with him a lot of details, and to my entire lineage, which goes back to Saint Tyagaraja, and which is also partly the reason why we have a lot of, the integrity for lyrics has been maintained in our School of Music, and I'm very, very thankful to all these great musicians, because of which I probably can feel lyrics better today to sing. Again, thanks to the entire lineage. And with this, I would like to thanks Lalit and the entire School of Music and the students. With this, I can take any questions if you have, and we can wrap it up. Of course, I had many more slides on Manodharma and stuff like that. I just basically removed everything because, we can keep that separate.
Do you want to stop sharing the slides?
Oh, yeah.
If you have any
Good point.
questions, we can hear that. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and just ask them.
I think I've ended the show, right? I've stopped.
Yes. Any questions? Thank you, Sujataka. Thank you for the nice words. Okay, I think that's. I don't think we have any more questions.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Harsha, for doing this for us. This was such a well thought out, very detailed presentation, very relevant for all levels of students, right from Geethams all the way up to singing Virutams. I hope that all students will start thinking about these aspects. Just first step is to just actively start thinking about lyrics while you're singing. If you have any questions, ask them. And if I don't know the answer, we can research that together. So this is an ocean, so we can all learn together and work on this. So with that, I'd like to thank Harsha for taking out the time today, and I'd like to thank everybody who attended. There's a question. Why do some singers have Kalpana Swarams for a very long time? Why some don't? Is there an unsaid rule where when you can do Kalpana Swaram, when you cannot? I think you answered this, right, Harsha?
Why do some singers sing Kalpana for very long and short? Because it is potentially, it has a lot of factors involved in it, right? So that's kind of, I didn't really get to cover because it was more like we were looking at the lyrics, right? But the short answer is, one is if the raga is just too constrained, that if you really cannot sing much, you cannot sing much. And in Rakti ragas like, Todi, Shankaravardhanam, Kalyani, you can sing a lot. And hence people choose to sing a lot sometimes. Or it can be also the position of the composition in the concert. So for instance, when you are in the starting stages of your concert, you may not want to sing too much, though you can. So just little short round of swaras can kind of, pep up the concert, and also kind of the whole flow of the concert gets better. So that is also part of the reason why people choose to sing little swaras in the starting of the concert and then kind of make it longer and detailed as you proceed later in the concert.
But
So,
does the lyrical content dictate the amount of swarams that or amount of time you spend in doing swarams in a kriti?
so
Like for example, Guru Leke 20, you the meaning of that song is not complete unless you sing the whole kriti, right?
right,
So
exactly.
is does that warrant Kalpana Swarams at all? For example,
It is again a very interpretative thing. If it is musically extremely nice to sing at some point, Kalpana Swarams can be sung. It's just that you have to be a little bit careful in how you choose the line. For instance, for example, in the Sugunamule, no, not Sugunamule. What is this kriti? The Chakravakam kriti, which is mm, Patti, I only remember the never line of all through others. I don't remember the first line of the Pallavi itself now. Patti Goddu Riti Bhakshinchi Tirigiti E Patti Goddu Riti. A lot of people do Nerval here, Swaram here. It's just that it is not an appropriate line to do Nerval and Swaram there, mainly because the Tyagaraja Swami is just lamenting about how the life has been very gross and life hasn't been good, and which is how he has been leading. So you do not want to highlight such a line when you sing a Nerval and Kalpanaswaram to that, because there is nothing really to sing in that, to exalt that line and keep it in that sort of an exalted status. So yeah, you have to be careful.
thank you, Harsha. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thank
giving
you
me so.
again so much, Lalit. Thanks for your great effort you're taking for in helping students and improve their make them as like a wholesome student and musician, which is amazing. Thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Thank you. So for everybody, the announcement is next 2 months we're going to have similar sessions. So look out for communication regarding that. We'll send out the dates, and we also have our opening performers like we had Raghav today. We'll have somebody else next month, and we'll have somebody else the following month. So we'll send out all that communication. We'll give you all the details as the days come closer. So watch out for that. Thank you all, and see you all.
Great. Bye. Bye, Lalit.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.